Okay, are we on?
You're on.
I call this July 16th, 2024 Planning and Zoning Work Session to order at 6 p.m. On our work session agenda tonight, we have two topics. The first is to clarify the current regulations for marijuana establishments, and the second is to discuss the comprehensive plan update. And I would like to hand this over to administration to give us an overview of the first topic, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. First, thank you all for a productive last work session on this topic and providing our office with some direction and where to go. After speaking with the chair, I really liked her idea of planning another work session on kind of the meat of this issue in the fall after the summer visitor season has winded down, in order to hopefully generate some more public input, because I think this is a topic that really needs a lot of public input as we move forward. And so I want to be clear about the purpose of tonight's work session is that we're really only looking to update code in a manner that does not change any regulation or any land use. All we want to do is update code in a manner that keeps everything the way it is in those respects, but outlines the code in a manner that is easier for the public to understand what the current regulations and land uses are. Now, there's two exceptions to that in the changes we put forward in the packet that Courtney will go over and explain the reasoning, but we are totally fine if the commission recommends we hold off on those changes until the fall discussion, just to make that cleaner and easier. And so to sum up, if and when the changes we discuss tonight come up at a future meeting, if you would to be voting for the changes that we talk about, to be clear, you would not be voting in agreement with those regulations or land uses. You would only be voting on changing the layout of the current code. And so that's our objective this evening. And I'll let Courtney kind of run through what she's put together.
Okay. So in the packet, the changes start on page 6. And this is one of the first changes in the definitions that would be new to our code, but we thought it could be helpful to add the definition for on-site consumption, since that was the primary reason that this discussion came up in the past work session. But that can be something, if the commission feels, is better addressed in the fall work session, when we're looking more at actually changing and adding new things to code. We can do that then. And then the other one is on the next page, page 7, where it lists that the marijuana establishments should not be located within 500 feet of certain facilities. And I added park, as I thought it was a further clarification of what is a recreational facility, that a park would be included as a recreational facility. But if the commission feels that park is indeed a separate separate facility from recreational facility, and that's something else that we can just strike and bring forward in the fall for changes in code. Then number 3, if you'll notice in all of the stricken language for the various marijuana establishments, it says in each of those that they would need to meet all the criteria of this code and in Alaska's statutes and administrative codes. So since we're striking all of the verbiage for each of the different marijuana establishments, we just put that language that all marijuana establishments need to meet all of the other criteria in this code in Alaska statutes and administrative codes. So that's not something that's changing from what currently is required in our code. And then essentially we're striking the verbiage for each of the different types of marijuana establishments, because the verbiage was placed there mainly to say, okay, like a limited marijuana cultivation facility is going to be considered as a home occupation, or a testing facility is going to be considered as office, business, or professional use. So we've struck all that and we've just added it to the land uses allowed table. So if we turn to the land uses allowed table, page 13, and it might help if, I don't know if you can if you have a printed copy or what, but you can put the written verbiage side by side with this land use allowed table to see how we've broken it down. So there's the marijuana establishment, so they're all under a marijuana establishment, and then there's specific types. So the first one would be cultivation facility, which was categorized or classified according to the verbiage as a greenhouse commercial. And so that's allowed outright. Greenhouse commercial is currently allowed outright in auto commercial, industrial, and resource management. And then the marijuana establishment for limited cultivation facility says that it would just be considered home occupation. So that's why it's listed as home occupation in all those zones, since in the land uses allowed table, home occupation is allowed outright. And so it looks like in home occupation isn't allowed outright in industrial, so we can take the H off of that one. Sorry, I didn't catch that. Then going on to the manufacturing facility, so the verbiage, the old verbiage in number 5 on page 7 separates marijuana product manufacturing facility using hazardous materials versus non-hazardous materials. So we have those two separated out. The one using hazardous materials would be a conditional use permit only in industrial. The non-hazardous materials would be conditional use permit in auto commercial, central business, and then allowed outright in industrial. And on the next page, and then this is where it gets kind of we had to break it down a lot more to hopefully add clarity, but it'd be for the commission to discuss if it does add clarity. So we broke down all the options for a retail store. So the first one would be just a retail store allowed outright in those zones according to what was defined as, it's defined as a business, retail, sales, and service currently. So then we would have a retail store with on-site consumption endorsement just for indoor on-site consumption. And then the next one would be with on-site consumption endorsement for outdoor consumption. And the last one would be marijuana establishment testing facility, which was classified as office, business, or professional use, and so that's allowed outright in all of those principally commercial districts. So those would be the only changes to code, but as Danny pointed out, they wouldn't change what has already been allowed in code. It's just changing how it's being presented in code.
Thank you. What are the wishes of the commission? Comments?
I'm curious why you broke out the indoor consumption and outdoor, since they're the same outright uses, I guess. Just to clarify, or?
Yeah, I think the thought was, so in the state code, it does have the different options of, like, you can have an endorsement for just indoor, or indoor and outdoor, or outdoor.
Okay.
And so we broke them up with the feedback that we received at the last work session, anticipating that that would be an area of discussion for the commission to perhaps choose different zonings where maybe indoor was appropriate versus outdoor.
Gotcha.
Commissioners, I'm just wondering if it would be appropriate to limit this future resolution to just what the code says now, and not tinker with it, not add the park, not add on-site consumption, not divide things up. I think that will be really appropriate in our fall work sessions, where we'll have more ideas about possible changes. But I think the intent was, let's clean up the code that we have now, and let's make it much more understandable and accessible, which I think this does really well. But I also think that if we start introducing a few changes here and there, it might muddy the waters, and council will think, oh, well, they could have done this and this and that, or the public will think that. So I think as a first step, I would recommend that we just pare it down to, this is simply, as advertised, this is simply a reorganization and representation of what the code is right now. And then recognize that the public would like to make changes, and we need to have more work sessions to accommodate the public's desire for changes. And that, I think, would really simplify it, so it doesn't go, wow, you added park, what about a daycare facility? What, you know, then we're moving into some really major revisions. But just to keep it really simple, I would like to pare it back, you know, as much as I think park is appropriate, that's not currently in our code, so I wouldn't include it. And I wouldn't include on-site consumption, because that'll pop out as, oh, well, we should really have this in our future code. But that would be part of that future discussion in the fall. And I'm also wondering, with these, on page 13 and 14, with the land uses allowed table, I think this muddies the water too. And the new definitions that aren't currently in the code, I don't think we should be discussing those with this proposal. And the assignment of where they're allowed, I think I just leave those blank so that we're not presuming anything. And then that goes before council. It's a simple presentation. All we've done is reformat, reorganize the code for marijuana establishments, so that it's much easier to understand. And we intend to have future work sessions to amend this code. I just think that would be a lot cleaner. And I think we'd get more public input after
Yeah, just to
that.
clarify, so I hear what you're saying about the on-site consumption definition, but then when looking at the land use table where we've separated the marijuana retail stores, just keep that as currently in the land use table as one line.
Just retail store, and we'll scratch the on-site consumption.
If that's what our
parts.
code currently
Yeah.
has, right? So just scrub it back to simply the reorganization, reformatting of what the code says now. I think that would make it really clean before council. What does the commission think? Commissioner Hubbard,
Oh, you know I'm ready to say something, aren't you?
you gave me that look.
Yeah, Commissioner Griswold, I agree with what you're saying. I'm just not sure what to do with the existing retail / on-site consumption shop that we have in play now, and that the city and the council just offered up. I wish that we would have dealt with that then. I don't know, was there any power at all? I mean, I don't mean to beat on the past, but was there an opportunity to possibly address it then, or put a hold on it, or did we not have any power at all? Because I'm afraid if we don't, we're just kind of opening ourselves up to more of this until we, I sense there's, it's sort of time sensitive and urgent to get something on the books sooner than later. And I know we're going through process, but I'm just curious that looking back, what could the council and the administration done then?
I can speak to what the commission has purview over. It really doesn't have purview over looking at a specific entity. It has purview over the land uses allowed in Seward City Code. And so what this commission could have done when Alaska announced that it was going to be allowing on-site consumption, it could have had this conversation then, and then put in code and had a conversation with the public about, do we want to be a community that allows on-site consumption at a marijuana retail store? But that did not happen. And so in regards to that specific entity, like that's not something that this commission has any power to deal with. And so we're kind of focusing again just on what the commission can officially take action on and recommend to council.
And if I can allay the, fear that some other marijuana establishment's gonna open up really fast, I don't think we know of anybody who's doing that, that's, you've heard it takes a very long process, so I don't think postponing it till fall, till we take action is really gonna affect anything, as far as I can tell.
Well, if I may, there's also other things that have come up in the code, like there's allowing samples to be dispersed. I don't know, if that's something that we want to allow in our retail shops now.
But that would be a conversation for the fall,
Okay.
to take all those ideas
Okay.
into consideration. But we would be in violation of the Open Meetings Act if we went beyond what was posted as the purpose of this work session, which is simply to address the formatting and reorganization of existing code. But I encourage the public and the commission to take note of good ideas and other options that we might want to consider this fall. But just for right now, we need to direct administration what format we would like to proceed. Does it sound good to stick to what we have in code and bring that forward to the council for their approval of this new format and reorganization?
What, in the current code land use table, is there any mention of on-site consumption at all?
On-site consumption is an endorsement of a marijuana retail store. And so on-site consumption, allowed use would fall under a marijuana retail store, which in current code would be business retail sales and service, which is allowed outright in those 4 zoning districts. And so to the chair's point, we could condense what we've kind of split up, or we could keep it the same. I think they're still all currently say what is currently in code. The point to the chair is if we are not going to add the on-site consumption definition, then it might be beneficial to hold off until the fall to separate them out. Because if we separate them out, it would still be accurate and true to what code currently says. We just wouldn't have a definition in the definitions of what on-site consumption is. So I see both sides of that one.
So no definition of on-site consumption is being proposed in these reorganization of code?
We put it in the packet.
Yeah.
But that was the chair's first point, is it might be
Right.
better to wait till the fall, because that would be changing code beyond just
I see.
reformatting.
Yeah, it's a good point. Fall feels close in government time or whatever. It's basically fall right now.
It does.
Feels like it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
So Commissioner Griswold, the last work session we had and discussion we had on this is I asked specifically to have the retail store separated out and then on-site consumption store or a facility that had consumption separated out. And I think that's kind of what they were doing is, and the layout was wanting to show that. But that's not to say that we can't, pick this up and do it again.
Right,
Yeah. But I just wanted to get that on the record, that
Right.
it's still the intent to
correct,
keep them. And there may be more other things to add as well.
right.
Correct.
And I think we'll have more public input after, like in September, for example. think we'll have more public in our audience.
And I think it's worth, because this will be a hot topic issue. It's like, that's the benefit of doing this piecemeal. Like, I think the decision we come up with of how to proceed now is like, what is most likely to get passed by council in terms of changing the format? If we kind of get too far, then they might be like, okay, that's, you know, we're getting beyond just what we're comfortable changing with the current layout. And so, yeah, just breaking it out this way, I think just makes that easier to understand. And then, yeah, we can move forward with the discussion of, do we want to keep the land uses or modify them in the fall?
I feel torn. I think you have, of course, Madam Chair, like a very valid point to keep it simple and in the fall address all of this. But I do see this isn't changing the code or our land uses at all. It
Correct.
is just kind of starting that process of discussion and as the commission has wanted as well. And I kind of like it, that they put a lot of work into it and it does start that, which I
Right.
think is why we have work sessions,
Right.
you know?
It makes it so much easier to see
Totally.
what,
Yeah,
what
and
we
there
have.
could become more sections or less, you
Right.
know, it's like
Right.
a good start, so.
And I correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't experienced yet, since I've started, something that an ordinance request through the commission that the council has like amended, but they have that opportunity too, if I'm correct. And so if we keep it as is, we can explain that the best we can, but also if they have questions, we can let them know that they have the option of combining those when they
Right.
go through their process.
And I have been here where they've kicked things back to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
right.
So,
Yeah, and I would appreciate letting council know that P and Z intends to hold more work sessions.
Definitely.
To get more public input and possibly make amendments. Anyone in the public wish to speak?
I have another clarification.
Okay, Commissioner Hubbard?
To staff, or admin, can you clarify again when, in these marijuana rules that we have, you know, we want to set more, maybe a higher standard or lower standard precedents, whatever, compared to what the state regs are, and
We could only set a more stricter. We can't loosen any state regulations, but if the city wants to be more stricter.
okay, so that's what I was wondering, because in some reviews or some cases, it's been you can't get stricter, but I just wanted to make sure that that was clear, that the way the rules or the statutes are written in Alaskan law, that communities can become stricter on their desired regs for the industry and codes. So.
Just for reference, the work session packet for Tuesday, June 18th has many of those regulations in there on how local governments can be different, can be more strict than the Alaska statutes or the administrative code. So I encourage the commission to keep this as we
Okay.
discuss future marijuana regulations. It's a really well-done, comprehensive packet. Okay, should we move on to the next topic?
Oh, you were going to ask something.
Oh, yeah.
I
Publix.
did, they said no.
So is, Chair Griswold,
Yes.
was the consent then to take out the definition for on-site consumption, take out the extra points in the land use allowed table and park?
I would advocate for paring it down to exactly what's already in our code, because that's what the intent was. This is a reorganization of what we have. And then those changes would become even more obvious, I think, when we see what's missing. And that would be more appropriate for the fall work session. Does that sound good?
So out of what's being presented, you're saying just like what was stricken in 3? You know, for what the work they put together? So you want,
So,
Yeah, I guess the final clarification we
Yeah.
would need is on the land use table, especially when
Okay.
it comes to how we've separated the on-site consumption. Because I think you could make the argument that that still is what's currently in code.
if it's currently in code, then I'd keep it,
Okay.
yeah. So I'd like the resolution that's going forward, if commission agrees, to be simply, this is what we already have. And if the interpretation is that's already in there, and it's smart to separate it out without, that doesn't change the code, it just changes how it's being presented, and that's what we're hoping for.
Okay.
So it makes it really clear what we have,
So the
and then it
ons-
makes changes more obvious.
So the on-site consumption is there by default, so it has to stay, right?
It'll be here, yeah. But it won't have a definition, because, and then we'll say in the fall, well,
Oh, it won't have a
it is in our land uses allowed table, but obviously we need a definition, and here it is.
Yep.
Right, so I think by reorganizing this to what we now have, it'll make the changes much more obvious, and the amendments more obvious. We'll see, well, it's a missing definition, and we're missing park, and we're missing daycare facility. You know, those kinds of things will pop out just because they're not in there. But to tinker with that now, I think, would muddy the waters.
So on the resolution sample, are we gonna explain this? Is this in the whereas statements, and then it's gonna be presented to council here coming up?
For
Can we
example,
get a draft of that before it gets presented?
Well, it'll come up at a meeting, at the planning and zoning regular meeting.
Oh,
For
okay.
you all to
Okay, we're just,
vote on.
was working on
Yeah.
it, got it.
right. So at a work session, we can't make decisions, we can only give direction
Yeah,
and
direction. Okay,
have discussion.
that's- Okay. got
But I
it.
think this, the whereas in the middle, whereas the proposed changes to code do not change the current regulations for marijuana establishments. And that's
Okay.
pretty much, I think, point of this resolution.
Okay. I mean, as long as you guys know.
Clarification.
We do.
They have,
Way to go.
they have learned so much, as have I.
No, I mean, they know what you're, exactly what you're
Oh, okay.
recommending,
Our,
right? Our,
Yes.
yeah,
I believe we do now.
okay.
Well, I would like clarification. Is number 3 then what we are gonna recommend and strike the 3, 4, 5, 6?
what page are you on?
Page 7.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
I like that.
I agree with that. I just wanted to get
Yeah, I'll
clarification
just
while we were
swap
at it.
through.
Yeah.
So page 6, I'm going to strike the definition for on-site consumption. Page
Right,
7, I'm going to strike park,
correct.
but keep the bolded number 3, keep the stricken 3, 4, 5, 6.
Correct.
Then on page 13, all of those will be kept. And page 14, all of those will be kept.
And are we keeping your interpretation of what zones these are allowed in? Because isn't it right now marijuana establishments, retail are just considered a normal retail business?
Yeah, so if you look at, business, yeah, they're classified under business, retail, sales, and service, so that's on page 10. So it's allowed outright in OR, AC, HC, and CB, and those are the only places that we've allowed.
Okay, so this reflects what is now.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So is the commission comfortable with those changes to this proposal?
Yes.
Okay,
All right.
sounds good. Okay, our next topic is the comprehensive plan. We're getting started on that. And it's an update. Would administration like to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is an exciting, big project. Going back to my first work session on the job was the review of the current one, which was overwhelming at the time, but starting to make more and more sense, and looking forward to getting feedback. Because it is a pretty big plan that will take probably a couple of years, kind of want to just be intentional and focus with the times that we do set. And so kind of our goals for this session is kind of go over a general purpose and of what a comprehensive plan is and vision overview. And then we want to focus a little bit on the format. And so we'll talk a little bit about like just the overall layout, because I think aesthetics does matter. But then maybe the meat of the discussion tonight will be more on the content of the plan and looking at the 9 current comprehensive plan elements and maybe brainstorming some edits to those in a way that still comprehensively reaches all aspects of Seward. There's a page in the packet that has a lot of different, it's basically called the Spotlight page, and that was an idea from one of the like award-winning comprehensive plans. If you didn't know, they make awards for these things, and they basically highlighted different groups, organizations, events, and so we liked that, and so we wanted to possibly highlight different community organizations, events, or just general unique aspects of Seward that would contribute just to the overall character of the town. And so these would potentially be sprinkled throughout the plan in relevant areas that they would tie into. And so looking for feedback from the commission on maybe criteria for what would qualify for that list and any changes to the current list based on that criteria, we come up with some. And then finally, having a conversation about public engagement and brainstorming methods to reach the public, because that's a big part of this process. And depending on how far we get with maybe coming up with new elements of the plan, brainstorming questions related to those specific plan elements that you think would be beneficial to get out to the public. And so when thinking about the purpose or the goal of a comprehensive plan, it's really to envision short and long-term goals of the community with broad elements that represent the community all the way down to the specific kind of action steps or implementation strategies that a community can enact to fulfill those goals. And that does start with a vision, and I think it's important for the vision to come from the people of Seward, which is why that public engagement will be a large focus of that project. However, that being said, I think those of us who have a responsibility in facilitating this project, thinking city council, planning and zoning commission, administration, should help provide a framework for that vision. And so what does that framework look like for Seward? And just having conversations with people. I moved here in 2013 when Seward was pretty already heavily into the summer visitor tourism scene. But talking to some older folks around town, get this idea that Seward once was like a kind of a blue-collar year-round town. The pendulum was way over on that side, and at some point it shifted when tourism became big for the economy. And there's benefits to that, but also disadvantages. And so I think it just some things in the time I've been here, like SBS or ACE or the plumbing store, or to some of the more fun amenities like a bowling alley or movie theater, things that you see in year-round towns, they left, and there's probably a lot of variables for why they did leave. But thinking like No Sweat, our car was one of the last cars to get fixed at No Sweat before they shut down, and part of it was staffing, and they couldn't get a mechanic, nowhere to live, and thinking about aspects of that. And so I think Seward's done a decent job being creative and helping fill in some of those gaps, but it's definitely put a strain on that community. And so I think the vision that we're kind of starting with is balance, right? And so like how does Seward find its balance as a town that still wants to develop into this vibrant year-round community while still utilizing the economic windfall of a summer visitor season? And so I think that's the challenge for Seward and kind of how we want to frame this comprehensive plan moving forward. And so I think we'll start there is with a question for the commission. That's kind of the framework we've kind of envisioned, but you all are here for a reason, and I'm guessing part of that reason is some sort of vision you have for Seward that's made you want to dedicate your time here. And so if anyone's willing to share, I'm just curious from the commission side of things, like what are one or two aspects that you think of when you think of your vision for Seward?
Would anyone like to start?
I'll go ahead.
Okay.
I think you actually captured it pretty well for what I'm looking for in Seward. Like, yeah, I want to maintain like the year-round town, right? I don't want to just become a tourist town that we shutter in the winter, like Skagway, and, you know, I think, that's not a community anymore. That's just a tourist town. And so I think keeping that focus and, you know, in the light of the big tourism dollar that's coming in here, is very important. And on top of it, I think, I got on the commission to kind of, like, I want to improve Seward, and I think we need to have a discussion about density and actually zoning, the fundamentals of it, because, you know, I've mentioned this before, but outside of town is growing a lot faster than inside of town, and that's partly because land's cheaper out there, but it's also zoning in addition to it. And if we want to have like a core downtown, we should have a discussion about, yeah, exactly what this comprehensive plan is, zoning and stuff. And look, zoning was only enacted in like the late 70s here, I think, or so, 79, I think. And how did it come to be? How's that zoning map? Somebody just sat down and made it up, and, you know, we should look at it and say, does it make sense? Like, and have we been following that plan, you know? How does zoning get updated? So that's kind of what I'm into.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sure, I'll chime in. I agree with Commissioner Charbonneau's comments, and I think there are some choke points in our zoning and what we're requiring, and we need to have more people in the room, I'm thinking of Public Works and the fire department, to understand wholly why that is happening and what are the reasons for, you know, why we're not or can't develop at others areas that we're not developing within city limits. I did notice in your plan format you wanted to ask in the public engagement on housing, and I appreciate those questions, and I think that will help us focus as well on some of where the choke points are and the problems are. And I will add, I don't want just a seasonal town. We need people to live here and run the city. And it's, you know, you say that it brings in a windfall, but it also costs a lot of money. There's a huge stressors with that kind of population influx, and where people just kind of use and abuse and leave. We got stress on our public works, on our hospitals, on our police force, our EMT. So it's tough, so we need to figure out ways to balance that out.
You are not required to speak if you don't want to.
Well, I mean, I agree with everything that's been said before. Obviously, zoning is very important, and yeah, I think we have a lot to look at there. I think there can be ways to incentivize some more year-round housing, as well as possibly increasing our bed tax be a way to get more income out of our seasonal stuff. So I think there's, yeah, a lot of things we can discuss. And seeing like community well-being and what attracts you to a place here. Yeah, like it was great when we had a movie theater and some of those year-round things and events. And so, yeah, coming back to year-round quality of life for everyone that lives here.
And there's like, it's interesting, I think there's like more of a desire for some of the seasonal people who are connecting with the community of Seward who want to stay. Like I did seasonal work for a while, and when I decided to stay for my first winter, I was like one of the very few seasonal workers, and people are like, oh wow, you're gonna do that? Well, I've talked to half a dozen seasonal workers this summer who are like, oh, we wanna stay. Like, and they're trying to figure that out and what that looks like, but I think that's cool, and like, we're getting people in that kind of transition to people like me who went from seasonal to wanting to invest in more year-time employment, and so, yeah, there's a desire for even the seasonal people to want to be here.
Sure, it's a common story, so I also got here.
Yeah.
I mean, I love the invitation on our vision. My brain's kind of jumping all around.
obviously a big topic. I mean, I like what the commission's saying, balance, maintain. Yeah, I don't really know where to go with the vision thing. I did some research, and most towns, I looked at Kenai, Sitka, Soldotna, have like a motto, which I think is good to have, which I see like seeds for ours. I don't know that we have one. Sitka, facilitating citizen-directed community growth. Kenai, village with a past, city with a future. That's kind of nice, to have something like that. Order is important, I think, with the comp plan, like, as far as like you read, those first couple pages get a lot of looks, and, convincing readers of the plan to keep going through it. It's a great opportunity, the comprehensive plan as a document. It's for any town to really set the table for the image. And so, yeah, it's a big task. I mean, one thing I wanted to talk about when I arrived, so I guess now is a good time, is about the Native history and the Native presence. And I think that's, a huge part of what should be in the plan, and Seward's story. And yeah, we spotlights, good spot, but again with order, like how town was settled. There's a lot of good Native points there. You're looking at Kenai's, they do a really good job with that. It's like, yeah, because we have a lot of history there. So I'm not that organized in my thoughts, so.
No, and
pause there.
I should preface this because coming from an educational background, I'm very well aware that people are engaged differently with their feedback, and I think when we get to public engagement, that's a big part of it, is like, what are the many different ways we can engage the public, because people will engage differently. And we're here in this kind of more formal setting, so we're kind of asking your feedback. However, if I was in your chair and someone asked me a question, I'd be like, I'm just an introvert, I need the process. And so I'm not expecting answers to all the questions in this type of format, but no, our office is open. If, I'm sure some of you are fine in this setting, some of you might do better coming in their office and workshopping some things, which we've done with a few of you. And so I don't want these types of conversations to be strictly just here in these chambers, because we'll be working through this for a while, and so we'll find other ways to engage even the commission.
Finding a format is really important. Once we figure out the format, then we can start to plug things into it. And I was looking through the suggested communities on the website, and Cordova, I really liked Cordova. It was a like 56-page document that kind of got down to the nitty-gritty of it. And this is the page I use in our volume 2 of the comp plan. We need to note that the land use plan is the only binding document. To change that, you need to go through a huge public process. This is the only binding element. But there's many supportive things in there. And as we've noted as a commission, when anything comes before us, there's a checklist. Does this comport with the comprehensive plan? And of course, you can find, yes, it does, and no, it doesn't. It's kind of broad, where you can really support just about anything, because a comprehensive plan is a very broad document. But the intent should be there. And I found volume 1 just has a whole bunch of stuff that I'm not even interested in. But it's nice to have supporting documents, and maybe those, like the history of Seward. I just want to get down the nitty-gritty of it. What are our goals? What are our accomplishments? What are our conflicts, and put the supporting documents, the statistics and all that dry stuff, put that in the appendix for reference. But let's get down to the nitty-gritty so it's real clear what our concerns are, and every community has about the same issues. But of all those plans that you selected for us to look at, none of them were destination towns / gateways / tourist towns. And we have become, even though we all want a vibrant year-round community, we have become a very seasonal, tourism-centered economy. And we're a suburb of Anchorage. All this, where do you go to get building supplies? You have to go to Anchorage now, or Soldotna. So this is a huge change that has happened since this was started, this 2030 plan. It's shocking how we've lost so many significant core businesses in our town. It's really shocking, which makes us even more, the more they improve that road, the quicker it is to drive to Anchorage and buy stuff and have people come down here and buy second homes, and enjoy our beautiful scenery and our wonderful fishing. And it's, we have unfortunately become a tourist town. So now we have to figure out, because everybody here expressed that, want a vibrant year-round community, how do we turn that giant ship around, so that we are a community of people. And one thing I've really noticed is we are so divided in our community. A lot of these plans, these gateway plans, we're saying, oh yeah, Yellowstone National Park. We embrace that that's why we're a gateway community, and we incorporate the park into everything. Well, here it's like, yeah, the park does its own thing, and we do our own thing. Unless you're in the school system, we have no clue what's happening in the school system. We're really like an onion with many layers, and we don't integrate. And that's kind of disturbing that we're really such a small town, but we don't integrate, we don't support each other in all those ways. So tourism happens over there, and fishing happens over there, schools over there, the parks, Sea Life Center, they're not integrated into our community. Some of us are members, some of us aren't, some of us like to go. It's just, we're all just sort of scattered and we don't support each other. So I like the idea of a slogan. I think that might help draw us together. But we're not just a tourism town. We have the prison. But guess what? Those workers, most of them, I think, have homes elsewhere. And those would be good statistics to have. So it's a huge part of our economy, but I don't think they don't live here. The majority of them go home. They have the swing shift, so they can leave for however long their shift is. So it just fractures us up a lot. So as we go through this plan, I really encourage us to look at that Cordova plan. I think it's done well and we could modify it for us. We have to consider that we are really different. We're on a road system, we have a train in the summer, we have a small airport, and we're just connected up the 60-mile-an-hour highway to Anchorage, which they're not. They're very isolated.
Madam Chair, I appreciate what you're saying, and part of what you're saying too is we're just a very diverse community.
Mm-hmm.
Too. And it would be nice if we could get an understanding of the employers in town, the major employers, including the hospital, NJ, and the prison system. Where are they housing their employees? And what do they do? We have a lot of traveling nurses. And so, yeah, it's hard to get them into the community when you have a lot of people coming and going. And it's versus some place like Cordova or even Valdez, you're going to have a little bit more of a connected community.
And that's what I was the point I was trying to make when I was like, Seward has done a decent job in being creative with these methods. So like the prison, for example, yeah, they can't hire staff because they can't find housing, so they outsource from Anchorage, and so they stay in the Aptec dorms when they're working their shifts here. And so yeah, that works for now, but it's, to your point, it's like a Band-Aid, it's not a good long-term solution. At some point, too many Band-Aids.
However, many of those workers did not want to leave their homes in Mat-Su and Anchorage and their kids in the school system. They didn't want, and that's, initially we said, oh, you have to live here, and they said, well, heck with that. So it said, okay, you can commute, because they didn't want to. They didn't want to come to Seward. They had already had their homes and their friends and their community up there. The kids were in the school, so they didn't want to rip up roots and come here. So the compromise was okay on and off, and then we really don't have a good handle on how that works, but they fly people in from Lower 48, and they like it. They work hard, and then they go play. And the other thing is the vibrant year-round community. A lot of Seward residents leave in the winter, just like seasonals, you know, so there's that, you know, you can't make people want to stay here. And a lot of seasonals, they want to go to New Zealand, you know, for the winter or whatever. They're free and easy. But for those of us who live here year-round and want to stay here year-round, it'd be nice to have a vibrant year-round community to belong to.
I mean, I think we have that. It's how you go about it. You know, you could find it. I've had a lot of conversations. Well, that AvTech, housing workers, that's an example of support across organizations. Like, not to get into an argument, but I feel like the community is our huge strength. And these different organizations do support each other. You know, as far as just programming, the Sea Life Center does a small fry, and that's a bigger plan, but I mean, there's a lot of support from the Sea, you know. So I think going forward, you know, this is kind of a big thing in lots of things, but like recognizing what we have that's really strong, because there's a lot, and just maintaining that, building that, getting that known more about, because when you're tapped into Seward, like, you feel connected, and it's a strong community, and there's, like, you can be very busy in the winter, just as busy in the summer, and, you know, so I think our community, like, I think that word in the motto would be good. I think that's a huge, huge strength of ours.
Could you repeat that, motto?
Oh, just the word community.
Word community?
Getting the word community in the motto. That's one word of the motto.
Okay,
you know?
thanks.
Because that's a strength. And I don't know, this is kind of a point, I guess, like Seward is, you know, the landscape, we talk about the beauty, you know, so of course, that's something special we have that some of these other communities don't have. Some do, it's Alaska. But that's part what brings tourism in. And, you know, now as tourism comes in more, I mean, there's this balance of welcoming that, but maintaining the small town feel we have. Like this we do have in there, small town feel and friendly atmosphere. That's like a quote that's pulled out in the comp plan. It's kind of like, you know, in the spot where a motto is, which I think is nice. But like Seward is the place to be inspired. It's a place to feel safe, like a lot of conversations I've had recently, the safety of Seward, a place where kids, you know, it's a very public town, and kids can, you know, have some freedom to explore and feel safe. And this connects to the history of Seward being a refuge, you know, now moving into Native history and the Jesse Lee home and the sanitarium. I think that can kind of be part of our image that's there that we can kind of put out more. You know, this is a real refuge, you know, with a Chugach clinic going in as well, you know, right there, there's a lot of help, you know, we're a helping community, we're a accepting community. Yeah, because the community is there. I think just people who aren't part of the community, who are wondering whether they should take a job here and uproot here, you know, you need to kind of test out, you need to live here to kind of feel these connections and see, oh, people are really nice here, people are really welcoming. It's hard to do that from the outside. So anyway, welcoming, you know, any way we can kind of put that in these advertisements or the comp plan, that people wondering if they should move here, if they get this feel that it's welcoming before even coming here, could help them, you know, could help strengthen that year-round community. A welcoming community, diverse.
A lot of your statements could be inserted under various topics in there and help guide, you know, this is our goal, we want to be like this. We are this, and we want to be that. And there's also, in some of these plans, a list of where we're weak and where we're strong. So we want to be this, we are this, how do we get there? And it's just so good to see it in print, to verbalize it and read it. and then you can kind of see it, and then you go, okay, here, this is where we are, this is where we want to be, this is our vision, how do we get there, those strategies.
Yeah.
I think the format, the layout is important to that. Because like looking at the current plan, there are bullet points kind of right next to each other, that one would be like a broad overarching goal, then right below it is like a very specific kind of action item. But they're kind of in the same area, so it's kind of confusing at what that means. And so kind of some of our initial plans were, one, to get away with the volume 1 and 2 and try and find a way to kind of merge them, because you have the 9 elements in both and the background's in one, but then you got to go to, that's volume 2. You got to go to volume 2 for the background before you get to volume 1, and then and yeah, find ways to make it less bolded, maybe more visual, and just I think we're looking for a better general flow to go from overarching goals down to your specific kind of implementation strategies. And so, Courtney, I'm gonna turn over here for her in a second because she's got some good stuff about the content. But I just wanted to, you already mentioned some things about the layout, but were there any other pros, cons of the current layout, or any things about the other layouts of the plans that kind of stood out that would be beneficial for us to kind of keep in mind? And we can get that feedback from you later too.
One thing about the Cordova plan, for example, the front page, it's a beautiful picture, could be Seward, you know, the harbor with the mountains behind. We are so blessed with spectacular scenery, and that should be a prominent part of this plan. It's just, what a beautiful place we live. It's so inspiring. And along those lines, I think we need to, for example, in Cordova, they have I can't find it, conservation zone. I think we need to work towards that. They have land use goals, establish policies that better guide land use to promote affordable quality housing and expand economic opportunities. Goal B, protect and improve Cordova's character, its downtown neighborhoods, waterfront and outdoor access. And C, sustain the health of Cordova's natural systems. That to me is a really important goal that I think we need to incorporate into our land use plan, because that is the basis of why people come here, why we live here.
If I may, because I think that's starting to get into what we want to do next. And we've talked
Okay.
about a few kind of specific good ideas, but how can we like frame that, what umbrellas do they fall under for that flow? And so turn over to Courtney for a little bit of that.
Okay.
Yeah, so what we're kind of proposing with this new format is a way to organize the categories in the plan a little bit better. I know we went through the plan, our current plan in February. We all kind of discovered a lot of overlap in the goals and some goals that were maybe in places that didn't make sense. So we have these 3 organizing themes for the plan of people, place, and economy. So these 3 themes will kind of organize the goals that we want to focus on. So we've, in the packet on page 21, you just kind of see a rough outline of what this could look like, and I've included in red where our current categories from our comprehensive plan right now would kind of fit into this proposed layout with people, place, and economy. But what we want, if the commission is willing, we'd like to have you get up, and we have paper out here in front for you to write down what categories you would like to see under people, place, and economy for the plan to focus on. So we're kind of still doing a broader focus. So if you look at in the packet, you know, like one of the categories under place would be land use and zoning. And of course under that we would need to break it down more about, okay, what is goals about residential zoning, commercial zoning, that sort of thing. But we're not really looking for the further breakdown of these categories, but more of like the general categories. But, I mean, we won't, yeah, anything you want to put down on the paper will be great, but trying to focus it more on the broads. And then we did list, just as, provide some guidance so you're not having to just pull things out of thin air, but you definitely don't have to use our thoughts, but we did put next to the paper like what we have kind of proposed for those categories. So for example, like this one is under people, so the proposed categories that we have are community health, community engagement, community well-being, schools, art and culture. So what we would want to see from the commission and the public, this is time for the public to come up and write down what you would like to see also, is what categories do you feel would be appropriate under people, place, and economy.
Okay, so when you think about your vision for Seward, think about Seward as the place and what important aspects are there. Seward as a people, what important aspects are there. Seward as an economy. And also the one in front of Jody, those are the current 9 comprehensive plan elements that are in the current plan. So if that's helpful too. And we can keep some of those. We've kind of kept some, modified some. So yeah, spend a few
Could I
minutes.
get a little clarification? So like under people, that's pretty broad. So where would you put seasonal workers? Is that under employment or economy, I mean? Workforce? People is just a lot, pretty broad.
Well, yeah, so that's the hope of this kind of collaborative session, is to really get a focus of, okay, well, what are you wanting to know about the seasonal workers then? Does it fit more under economy for tourism? Like, are we, the goals that we want to put in our plan for seasonal workers, is it focusing on their work here, or is it on how do we retain them? So then we're looking more at quality of life. And that would fit more under people and the community well-being. So that's kind of it. And that, to your point, then maybe that might be, if you're looking at just seasonal workers, that might be one of the more narrowed categories that would fit under one of these broader topics. But
before we break for that, I'd like to open this up to the public for comments.
You want me up in the chair there?
Jody can run the microphone back to you, or Clara. Just to make it more comfortable for the audience.
Hi,
Jody.
I'm Mary Lynn Barnwell, and everything that you've been saying has been really awesome. But I think when I think about Seward, everybody that I know of, they're here because of the environment. And I think that needs to be the focus. That your seasonal workers probably want to be here because it's beautiful and the outdoor recreation opportunities are here year-round. As well as your businesses, your workers, it's like that's the focus, I think, of our town, and that needs to be more blatant. And the comprehensive plan that we have now does not lay that out very well, I don't think. And then I think that also, just to begin more than even more broad, that we need to celebrate and recognize all the accomplishments that this town has. Like, it's amazing. I heard estimate of 40,000 people here for Mount Marathon. And it's seamless. So that needs to be addressed. And then also, I think maybe even more before these breakouts, like, what are our challenges? Because we've been talking about how we're seasonal now, and those kinds of things I think need to be brought out. Where are we having issues, and what are those opportunities for the future? And something else I kind of dotted down is it kind of seems to me as a watcher that we're looking at this comprehensive plan as something for the leaders of our community, including you, and city council and city manager, but I don't see it that way. I see it as it should be something that is a framework for residents and all those people that'll be our future partners. And if we have that shared vision, then hopefully we can pull in all these entities, like Carol was saying, how we're separate and we don't know what's going on unless you're part of that group. And I think that those things need to kind of happen first.
Thank you very much.
All right, Bob Barnwell, inside city limits, city council. I want to apologize because I was the one that really pushed you guys into this whole quagmire. And it really is overwhelming if you think about it. But luckily, like Danny said, and Courtney, that it's a multi-year progress here. I mean, it's going to take a long while to dive into this. But if you really do look at the current comprehensive plan, which you all have done recently, I think it's really quick. You quickly figure out that it's not very usable. It's too big. It's too vague, and it's out of date. And it has to be updated. My brother's on the planning and zoning committee for Homer, and they're redoing. I think they're paying $600,000 to redo theirs, and we paid a lot of money on our last plan. And honestly, the plan looks good at the first flush, but if you dig down, you're like, wow, there's really not that much there. And I think a lot of it is because we didn't really do that. It was orchestrated by an outside entity in Anchorage, and what we need to do is wrestle with this, just like you guys are doing tonight, wrestling with your vision. And it's super hard to wrestle with that. But I think everyone in this town needs to wrestle with this. And it's a shame we don't have a paper anymore. Marilyn talks about stakeholders. I think that's a big part of this comprehensive plan, is to figure out who the stakeholders are and get them in here and really hash it out, and we all have differences of opinion. You guys were talking tonight about the marijuana issue, and I think that's an example, as it was the HEA sale this winter, as the airport coming up, as the new docks coming up for the cruise ship and the freighters. We need to have our ducks in a row, because if we don't have our ducks in a row, we really don't know who we are, where we're going. We're going to be manipulated, and that's pretty common in the state of Alaska throughout history. If we don't know who we are and what we really want, we're going to be manipulated by other entities that really do have their act together and have a stronger voice. So I'm super excited to see you guys dive into this, and I really want to be helpful on this. On a final note, I was on a meeting yesterday, or last Friday, with Christy Terry and the cruise ship industry, and obviously Christy represents the railroad, and they were talking about these quantum class cruise ships that are coming in here really in 2 years. And those things are huge. Each one of those ships is 50% bigger than the biggest ship you've seen here. And they're going to have, each one of those ships are going to be something like 30 or 40 buses of people. And it was really interesting because we were at the Sea Life Center, and I went to the Sea Life Center thinking, oh, these bunch of scientists, they're all going to be like me, and they're going to go, wait, we have to be careful of this. And they were all like, hey, we need these tourists. We need to pay our bills. We're paying higher power bills. We need tourists. And it's interesting because we make these assumptions, but we all have different perspectives, and we have to have our ducks in a row. Yes, the Sea Life Center needs tons of tourists to pay their bills, but we all have to think through this. How many tourists do we really want? Do we want to end up like Juneau, Sitka, or Skagway? At the moment, Juneau is going to voting for how many tourists they can handle per day, how many ships they want per day, and if they actually have 1 day off from tourism, from cruise ships. And I'm an advocate. I think cruise ship industry is very valuable in our town. It's not that I don't value them. I think we need a balance because the independent travelers will fill the vacuum that the cruise ship, if the cruise ship fills the entire space, that's what's going to happen. Do we want some of that space to be independent travelers? Do we want some of that space to be a diverse economy that's year-round? And I think if we plan carefully, we can have all of that. But if we don't plan, it'll just be won by the loudest voice and the most money. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you very much. Well, would the commission care to check out these blank pieces of
I
paper?
would just, in response to that real quick, if I
Okay,
could,
go
you know,
ahead.
I'm excited for this exercise, but great points, thank you guys. You know, it's, this public input, you know, it's like, how do you determine what Seward wants, what we want? You know, it's 3,000 people, that's what I always say for the population, right? It's who lives here, so, you know, our job is to represent the people of Seward. But, you know, there's a lot of different desires and wants, so like, you know, I think that's part of what you're looking for, you know, like trying to get as much public input as possible. How do we get more of that? That's just something to keep working on. I don't know, survey or, I don't know. But just as both of you were making those great points, it occurred to me like, what about like another document, you know, like, because the comprehensive plan, something every community has, it is just by nature a big, kind of tough to read thing that's not for, like Mary Lynn, I like what you said about for a framework for the residents, you know? Like what about a Cliff Notes to a comprehensive plan type of document with like a shorter that's just like we just get out there more and more people read? Like as a resident before I became on P&Z, like I didn't have interest in the comprehensive plan or know about it. I'm just like thinking, guessing most residents maybe don't. But if we kind of got this really short, just like, you know, great writing of what Seward's all about that involves the vision of the future and the history and what we are, that everybody reads and everybody knows. And if you're evaluating coming to Seward, hey, here's this part that we can give you, you know? And of course, that would be a challenging document production assignment, but just ways to make the comp plan more readable and, you know, with like a Cliff Notes, you know, for like just an idea right now, that could lead people, oh, this is pretty good, now I'll go to the comp plan, you know, for just an idea.
I noticed Cordova had what they called an executive summary,
Okay,
which sounded good to me.
yeah.
Some of the newer plans we looked into had executive summaries.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds a little too official, but,
Yeah.
you know, something that's just, yeah, there's something just, I mean, I like the beauty,
I was gonna add, the community of Crested View, which is a big tourism town, has what they call a community compass that is aligned with their community comprehensive plan. So they take from the comprehensive plan their compass that all of the citizens and the residents of the city of Crested View kind of look towards. And that's a really good example, if you wanna check it out, for Crested View, because it also kind of aligns with that whole tourism realm as well and takes into account that aspect. So it's a cool example that I liked.
I did check out that site when I was looking for destination/gateway/tourist towns, and boy, do they have an identity. And it was just peppered with pictures of them, the residents, playing and working, and emphasis on biking. They had a whole thing about people biking to the ski slopes with on snow. You know, they're doing it. And it was peppered with their residents' statements about what they liked about the town, what they didn't. It was a very personalized document. It was not dry at all.
that's what we want.
Yeah.
It seems a lot like what the chamber comes out with for tourism, but, you know, with the twist.
Right, with a twist.
Yeah, that'd be a good document to look at.
Uh-huh.
I mean, our identity, you know, we have a strong identity. It's dynamic. Blue collar is part of it. And I think as we go forward with our vision and our identity, it's important to look back of what's been built and what's always been there, you know, and keep that as we go into a new age where tourism, you know, because of the beauty and the landscape and the access has opened up more and more.
Let's do this. We kind of framed it like, what plan elements would you think about these 3 areas? But at the end of the day, that's not set in stone, and we're gonna get feedback from the public that'll help shape that as well. And so, just go around and this question, when you think of Seward as a place, what do you think of? And then write it on that one. You think of Seward as a people, what do you think of? Write it on that one. When you think of Seward as an economy, what do you think of? Write it on that one. And then we'll compile those. And then, so our vision was taking that feedback, and then we can break those down and talk about the public engagement and like, what would we want to ask our public about those areas? Does that sound
That
good?
sounds great. It's not so much topics, just kind of like fill it up, you know,
Yeah.
these are like things associated with that, and then you can. Like that.
Dan, is that what we want it to be or what it is? Or both?
Vote, all that on there.
Yeah.
Load it up. Fill it.
So you're gonna divide this one into 3 sections too? So you have
So there's
separate
a
here.
people, place,
Oh, I didn't see
economy.
any writing over there.
Yep.
Oh, so you have writing on there, okay.
These are some like elements that we kind of workshopped based on the current elements and research from other plans, but you don't need us, you can maybe use those as kind of guidelines for some areas that we thought of, but
Would the commission and public be interested in a process where we all work together and you write down what we say? Would that work for
Yeah.
people? So
I've been
we
to
can bounce off your ideas and not just individually write something down and nobody sees it?
Well, we'll all see it as we go down.
What if we take a 5 to 10 minute break to have people write things down and then come back briefly and talk and see if more ideas come from that?
I like
And
that.
to tag on to that, if we write it down and it's like, I like that idea too, or I would have said that also, put a check mark next to it so we know that, oh, 2 people wanted that.
Oh,
We
yeah,
thought
we could
about
do that.
We
or
don't get
it
redundant,
ends up being
Right,
10 people.
Right.
That gives it a little more emphasis, that particular statement.
okay. So Deputy Clerk, is this a thing where I declare a recess and then the tape stops? And then we do our thing and then we come back and we're back on the tape?
We will pause, we'll pause everything and we'll
Okay.
turn off the mics and we'll put the video on pause. And then when you come back, we'll turn it
Okay,
back on.
so I'm going to declare a, 15-minute recess?
What do you think?
What do you think?
That's good.
15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, 15-minute recess to put our ideas down on these sheets, and then we'll come back and discuss it. And the public is very welcome to come up.
Yeah. I think so.
Are we on?
You're on.
Okay. The recess is over at 7:33. Would the administration like to coordinate what's happening on the paper?
Yeah, it would benefit, especially for the public record, to kind of read through.
Right.
All right, and so what we can kind of do is, so I know people were still writing, is if there's something that we missed, we can add it to the list. But for, when you think of Seward as a people, we've got Native history, Russian history, Seward history, and I'm focusing on Katuchak tribe, mountain people, ocean people. Where else do you have both? Which is a good sentence there. Strong community, know your neighbor, involved, volunteer activities, the advantage of in-person communication, plugging into people, common routes, activities, a walkable town, bikeable town, artists and art educators and teachers, K through 12, students, youth, rec and arts for outside of school activities, and welcoming and helpful cooperation. And some of the categories we can highlighted was community health, and under that one, future city hospital relationship. We've got community engagement, community well-being, schools, and other education opportunities, AbTech, distant learning, homeschool, that's a good one. Arts and culture, communication, newspaper, public media, slash communications needed. So.
Just a question, do you think we need to mic?
It's turned on. That one is turned on.
Yeah, do you want to put it over on the table there so we're sure you're being picked up on YouTube? And you don't have to hold it. This is very important information. Okay, thanks.
So any additions, or we feel pretty well-rounded there? Everyone got a chance to write down their thoughts there? Okay, we've got, when you think of Seward as a place, we've got trails, we got winter and summer, winter indoor gathering spots, summer and outdoor, management of those things, activities, movies and bowling and kids. And so I think that might fall under like what we're hoping for the future. Future community art center, mountains, studio space, gallery, nearby amenities. You got the national park, national forest, Little Point, Bear Lake area, downtown history walk, placards, connectors to places, and the AbTech Seward Parks and Recreation Department collaboration. And then going into over here, making sure we do talk about land use and zoning districts, a conservation overlay, natural district, and mixed use and zones under land uses. Under housing, we've got affordable density, mixed use versus suburban sprawl, capital improvements, prioritized environment, develop or preserve global warming, and then preserve, including wetlands, anadromous streams, and viewshed. Maybe make a GIS overlay mapping of all the items on these maps, and co-locating activities at and in public facilities, schools, AbTech, Sea Life Center, RR, Railroad? That's Railroad?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead and take the mic.
And then thinking of Seward as an economy, we've got blue collar, year-round industry, historic jobs that have always been part of Seward, recruit using natural beauty and resources to entice, special needs services and job assistance, support fishing industry, boat and ship repair of all sizes, seafood industry crisis, fiber optic access, energy efficiency and conservation, weatherization of homes and businesses, heat pump grants, communication, local news, radio, social media, and one community calendar and teleworkers. And we got workforce, entrepreneurships and micro businesses, business retention and expansion, tourism. The question, is Seward being oversold, limiting mass visitors, yes or no question, advocate, advocate and accommodate year-round businesses, seasonal versus non-seasonal housing, incentivize year-round businesses and housing, GIS map, and childcare, seasonal housing, year-round, prison, long-term care facility, health center, Sea Life Center. Nice work, everybody.
It is pretty amazing what comes out when you think about it a little bit and put it on paper.
Yeah.
Thanks for that exercise. Any additions? Did that spark any additional ideas you'd like to get on the paper?
We didn't put beauty gardens.
I'm-
Put it on her place and.
I guess that's what.
I've noticed often people who are employed here and housed say they could live somewhere else and they could get more pay, but it's the community and the quality of life here that keeps them here. And that's a goal that we should try to retain. Because we train them up and they leave, but if they're connected and they want what Seward can offer us. We can't offer everything. We're a very small community, but what we can offer is tremendous. If that's what they need, they'll stay.
Well, you also have people that leave because they can get other things elsewhere, don't want to come here. You know, just trying to hire, some staff for, to run the city or departments. It's like, why would I want to do that when I could live cheaper here and not pay as much in energy and have all my amenities?
Got to hook them in onto what we can provide, what we're good at. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that, I don't know how granular you want to go with this, but power's, energy.
Yeah.
We need affordable electricity.
Yeah, I forgot to put that on there.
Get done.
The cost of living here is high.
Yeah, it's becoming,
Right. That would be cost of living. Would that cover?
well, I would
Utility,
specifically like
please.
the power, what are we gonna do about power?
Okay.
And then the other one is, we're gonna have to do with the sewer plant. Do we want to move into town, or do we want to do that thing, or that's another huge decision coming up.
Infrastructure.
Right,
yeah.
infrastructure.
And then prioritizing that, like, same with the buildings, could we build a police building first, or do we build?
Right. Right.
It's like.
So aging infrastructure
Aging
is a huge
infrastructure.
problem.
Yeah. And then I was gonna say for trails, Mary Lynn and I, mostly Mary Lynn, has been really advocating, because the Forest Service is really solely focused on the winter, it seems to us, in trails. Summer, that we're really trying to get their paradigm shift, like, hey, winter trails are really important. And that if we can get winter trails here that are more, help with grooming, help with maintaining winter access and winter activities for recreation, will draw on that quality of life for the winter. So those small little things make a difference. Or like running with the bike, the bike movement, like we should be working on the advocating for Edgar Glacier bike trail or Nash Road whenever you do it, we should, it's a bike trail. All of these things we have to think out 5 or 10 years, because it's coming down the road and we have to have that down so we're ready to jump on it.
So I didn't really see in these categories where things like the Long Trail coming up, these projects, huge projects that are in the pipeline coming, the Lowell Point Diversion Dam, where those workers going to live and how will that impact the town, the Quantum cruise ships coming, these many housing developments like the Hilltop project, those have been started, we've initiated a lot of things. So where would those projects fall? Are those all under a broad category of economy?
Well, I think there's like a missing gap in what, you got the 3 broad people, place, economy, and then thinking in terms of the missing gap would be kind of relevant or similar to the 9 current comprehensive plan elements. And so I think we've kind of, with the way we went around this activity, I think what we will do in our office is kind of all right, go through this information, and I think this will be a good question to ask the public as well. And then can we come up with what do we think the the comprehensive plan elements should be based on our feedback from the commission and the public, making sure that we are encompassing all of these things. And so I think that's kind of more some work we can do on our end before we bring more structure to you all and kind of get your thoughts.
With that, those kinds of things come in more like when you meet with public utilities department? Because that's probably big on their mind. Yeah. Those kinds of.
Yeah, and I think that gets into like the specifics of it, and when we start getting into like policies and implementation strategies, you know, like I think we're trying to figure out like generic phrases and themes so we can get our broad picture, and then yeah, once we start moving down, then that's when we'll start hitting up individual organizations, departments, and get that kind of feedback.
Any other thoughts from the commission?
So what is your, well, first of all, I wanted to express the appreciation for keeping this really organic and having that public engagement. I think we didn't get the real bang for our buck on the last comp plan, and I say that my mom was on the commission at the time and was a little disappointed on the final product, but I'm glad that we're going to be bringing others into this. So what is your plan for that public engagement? What events?
Sure.
Where and when?
It gets us right into our next segment, so.
Yeah, so we will, if you turn to page 24, there's kind of some bullet points on how we plan to go about with public engagement, and just want to point out that we are at the very, very beginning of a long process, and we have a draft for kind of our timeline, which we are still going to be tweaking, but the public engagement is going to be a big portion of this timeline for the development of the comp plan. And so within the timeline that we set for public engagement, we are hoping to do all of these methods for public engagement and any others that you may think of. We already had some other suggestions tonight that are really good. But we will do probably more work sessions on this topic. I think some of these other public engagement methods will be more beneficial and useful than work sessions actually, but if there are, you know, topics that may be good to discuss or draft plans, probably will come at a work session. But we plan to do open houses and provide hopefully food, provide childcare, just because we're with these public engagement methods, we're trying to identify what are the audiences that we aren't hearing from the public, and then what's keeping them from coming. And so potentially I think that childcare is one of the reasons why people don't come out to voice their thoughts. They don't have anybody to watch their kids, and they don't want to haul 2, 3, 4 kids to a public meeting. So,
or even one.
Right. So these are things that we're going to tackle and try and figure out solutions to provide these options. But then also having informational tables at community events. We have the holiday fair, we have the Halloween carnival, other events within the community that we can have a table up and have paper for people to write. Or have our QR code for the survey that we're going to create. So then we'll have online surveys, similar to, for any of you that were engaged with the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant that the borough is working on. They had a QR code in the survey that was being generated throughout the community. So similar to that, we plan to do interviews and with either, we brought up, like who are the major employers in the community. So identifying those individuals may be good to interview them, or identifying other organizations that we may not hear their voices often in our meetings, to actually just go to them and ask them questions and get their input. Then we plan to have a project website where we'll also have the information of what's currently been discussed and where we're at in our, in the process of the plan, but then to also have an area where people can type in comments and send comments to us through the project website. And then, of course, we plan to send all of this information out, surveys, meeting notices through email, Facebook. Commissioner Ullman brought up, why not just do the old post office mail out notices? We can do that too. So these are all just kind of like the initial ideas we have, and just wanted to ask the commission if you had other thoughts for ways that we can engage the public and reach that minority that we're not reaching.
Yeah, I had a few thoughts on that. I think like having kids input would be great, like doing a school event, and older kids too, like Avtech, you know, is a good place. And then on the other end, we could do the senior center, going back and forth, but Boys and Girls Club, you know, Mountain Haven even, like, they're all part of the community. We should, and you don't see a lot of those folks around, so.
Good.
Yeah, so those would be
Senior
good.
housing.
Yeah, so those would be good ones for us to actually go to and interview probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking about a school, the open house, they have it, and I think Avtech also has maybe an open house, or open when the students first come. And I see you have Facebook here, and I'm not sure if it's, they have like Seward Public Announcements, there's different ones, but does the city of Seward have a Facebook page?
Yes.
Okay.
We need to advertise that
Yeah.
more widely. I
Yeah.
didn't know if we had that.
Yeah,
Oh, I told you today.
Yeah.
We had that, yeah.
Oh.
I better friend them, huh?
Right, right. And that could be changed to social media, just to make it more broad.
Yeah, I like this idea of going to places that Commissioner Hornseth has kind of brought up here. And like, you know, a student survey, like that's a lot of input. You know, we have a lot of students, it's almost like, hey, and it empowers them, and they are like a big part. Like what's their vision of Seward? What's their impressions of Seward? Like that's like where the real, I mean, they can provide some real insights as far as like what's actually, you know, on their level, and that's cool. And the seniors, yeah, for sure. We show up at these places when there's something going on, there's a lot of people right there. All right, so there's all these opinions that we can gather, and when you're right there, it makes it easy. It's like inviting. It's like, oh, they're here. All right, yeah, they want to know what I think, you know. So some work, but you guys.
Can I
for
make
work.
May I
Yes,
make a
yes,
suggestion?
Yeah,
So one of the things I see that you have on here is the open houses and like childcare, and the reason people don't come is because they don't have babysitters. I know the high school now has to have community service hours. The kids have to have them to graduate. So you could possibly get some kids to volunteer their time to babysit while you guys host a gathering. And they could babysit and you guys sign off on their community service hours for that. So that you can have that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good collaboration there.
Right, that
That's a
would be
great
a nice
idea.
collaboration. Put those kids to work. Be nice to tap into word of mouth. That seems to be the most powerful communication tool this town has. How you tap into friends groups that, you know, people who walk around Avtech or whatever to talk to and try to get people activated so they share with their friends. That'd be pretty cool. Infiltrate.
Yeah, when you guys are serving people at the cookery, you can't take their order till they scan
Right,
the
fill out this
barcode.
quick survey, please.
I mean, the PO is such a, you know, place that everybody goes. I mean, can you put, I don't know, so these places that everybody goes, you know, if there's a presence there.
Safeway.
Yeah, yeah.
Safeway, post office.
This is a great list. And jumping ahead, I love these questions that you guys have. They're awesome for going down.
Commissioner Ullman, you'd mentioned about having a logo, do you remember?
Motto.
Huh?
Motto, your logo.
Or motto, yeah, motto. Like Seattle had the Emerald City, they're called,
Yeah, yeah.
and they changed it to something else, but we had one, it's called Alaska Starts Here.
Yeah.
And it seems like the chamber always comes up with, when
That's
they
the
have a marketing
Chamber's.
plan.
It was the
Is that the
Chamber's.
chamber's
Yeah.
motto then for
Yeah.
Seward? Okay.
I mean, Gateway City, right? Isn't that
Yeah,
part
I've
of
heard that one before, so.
So Flag City.
What's that?
Flag City, our flag was created.
Oh,
it?
right.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's good.
right.
We had many hats.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just something everybody knows, you know, and it's like, again, that everyone can read and just be aware of and kind of, you know, you're not going to be able to just guide our whole vision in a half a sentence, but I don't know. Got a few mottos.
We heart Seward.
Yeah, well, love here.
You will too.
Yeah, it's something to think about. It'd be nice to have a motto.
Embrace the rain.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, any final thoughts for the administration?
Well, I guess just with these questions, you know, this is a great list going down to page 26.
Yeah,
27. Is this like what you, yeah, talk about those little?
Well, I wanna respect the commission's time, but if you had room for one more activity, that was kind of our final thing, is to do something similar, but with the questions, like, when you think about Seward as a people-place economy, like, what are questions you think would be beneficial to have on some sort of survey? And so we've kind of brainstormed several, but we would love feedback from the commission if we want to do like one last activity or.
Yeah, and I think like the hope for what questions we ask the public would be to identify, as Chair Griswold brought up, like what are the challenges and what do the people want for Seward, so that then we can, as we develop the policies and implementation strategies, we're using that feedback from the community of what they've identified as our challenges and our goals to then create policies and implementation strategies that will address those. So what do we need to know from the community to get that information, essentially?
I mean, this looks like good homework type of thing. You're saying like add to these questions? Like what are we,
Yeah,
yeah, right now?
we could do it now, I'm saying, we could do it now, like, this is more just getting feedback from
Like
you
could
all.
these be kind of like a survey framework that you're thinking, you know? Or is the survey, you know, there's kind of a strategy there as far as like not too long, gets right to it, or, you know? Like these are all valid as I skim through and great.
Yeah, if you get it too long, you might lose interest, but.
Yeah, and then, yeah, that would be maybe a discussion related to our strategy for the survey itself, but just some basic thoughts would be that we would break them down into smaller surveys and send out a survey just about housing.
I see.
That might work better.
You know, because we definitely want to keep our surveys to like 5 minutes max.
Right.
Like, because I lose interest in a survey after
Right.
2 minutes, so.
Somebody does it, yeah, it was quick, do it, you know, it's
Yeah.
fun. Word of mouth.
It seems like Providence does a community, or Seward Community Healthcare Services, one of them, maybe both of them, do a community health survey that could be incorporated into this.
I mean, I think you're covering it well with these questions.
So, yeah, there's probably ways you can consolidate some of these.
Yeah, we just kind of started brainstorming a bunch of questions, and we would take recommendations, and I think that would be another part of the work on our end, would be to go through, like, all right, are these questions similar? How can we ask it in a way that encompasses both? And so we're just kind of looking big brainstorming here, and we'll task ourselves with whittling it down. And
I noticed you'd mentioned Bear Lake and you have Bear Creek on here. Isn't most of that area now privatized? How do you get to Bear Lake? I mean, they have that one section that's sort of public, but it's really kind of owned. The whole shoreline area is getting pretty much privatized. It's for access.
what are you
You mean
referencing?
recreationally?
Yeah, when they're talking recreationally and,
What page are you on?
28. This is a little bit, maybe I'm getting off, but I would just,
I mean, there's trails around it and there's.
oh, the trail.
Yeah, there's the hiking trail that goes around it, and then that's just that maybe you're thinking of what I'm thinking of, that small community spot, access
Yeah.
spot, but that's like just hugely popular in the winter for cross-country
Oh,
skiing.
right, for winter time, yeah,
Yeah.
and go into ski on it, okay, yeah. That would be
I
good
think
then.
you raise a good point about our access to water has been greatly restricted. I'm glad we have public access along the waterfront, but much of our access has been commercialized. It's
Yeah.
industrial, it's blocked off, you can't get there anymore. And Bear Lake too, it's privatized. So we need to keep that in mind, public access to our resources, to our beaches and lakes.
Is there a question in here about winter activities or winter recreation? Or what would you like to see better, more of, or what we have enhanced?
Maybe that would be good to add to the word you recreate in Seward or Greater Seward in the summer, in the winter. So you could kind of see that versus.
Right, they're different, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could actually get to a lot more places in the winter with snowshoes and skis than you can in the summer.
No, that's good.
So you can break that question down.
And we have a pretty vibrant local ski group here, so.
I think this is a really good one. What, in economy, toward the end of the whole document, how do you think the community should balance the need for economic development with the need to protect our environment and natural resources? You know, big question. And then tourism is light, I think. You know, maybe we could fill in something with that. I mean, it's a good question. What is your preference for cruise ship visitation growth? Even tour, I don't know, I feel like we gotta face tourism more. Like we dance around it even a little. I'm not, like it's happening, it's big, you know, it's just like what else can we add for that, for questions about tourism? That could be productive.
Like, do you work in tourism?
That's
Or
good.
is your,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of those
You
questions
work-
start like that, okay, let's get some stats, and then we're looking for
Yeah.
opinions after. That seems like the outline that you've laid out. Yeah. I mean, how have you seen tourism change, you know? If you've
Yeah.
got- You know, there's a lot of longtime residents here that you get opinions from, they could tell the stories of.
I'm trying to think of a way to word a question that just, gets people's overall impression of tourism.
Right.
Well, I can tell you from a long-term resident
Yeah.
standpoint that I think we've become more of a rec room and a bedroom rather than a living room. So how can we make Seward more of a living room?
How about the question of like, how, you know, what amount of the community wants more and more tourism? Like, is this something, like what community members want more tourism, you know? Or why? I don't know.
I think you need to be realistic of what tourism really brings though. I think it's a little overrated. We think that, oh, it's bringing all this stuff, but it, again, like I said, it's also causing a lot of other stressors.
Right.
And we need to be realistic about that.
But it's tough when your income is based on that, right? So.
True.
which A lot of our. year-round people
But I mean,
live
from
here
an-
is.
I mean, from an aggregate, you know, the aggregate impact on a community.
Plus,
What does
I
that
think
look like?
What the,
You know, and we have second and third owned homes because people are just using it as a rec room and a bedroom rather than, and so that has consequences
Sure.
down the line.
And having worked in tourism for a decade, like we did not see many cruise ship passengers, at least in my industry. It was mainly independent travelers. And so, as Councilmember Barnwell was bringing it up, if we're getting these larger cruise ships and they're taking more of the beds, if they're not recreating as much as independent travelers do, will our, even though we have increased tourism technically, will our seasonal businesses suffer from the type of visitor we have in the summer?
I think Seward would do fine without extra cruise ship passengers.
I agree.
Absolutely fine. And we need to be really proactive and careful about having them come in and just dump all their passengers here. But I think Christy Terry said that they weren't going to be doing that most of them were going to be just disembarking and leaving. And the other thing about the cruise ship industry is they like to keep their people contained and spending money within their own services or where they're taking huge commissions. So they don't necessarily benefit the local business owner unless you want to give away half your business.
Yeah, what types of tourism and tourists benefit the community
Right.
of Seward best? Like,
Yeah.
we're trying to identify that.
Yeah.
Sort of welcoming, you know, well, yeah. I think there's just a lot of unknown for the,
Because they come in and I don't know if they're dumping their sewage, they're using our, our sewage treatment plant, they're dropping a ton of garbage, they're using lots of water. They will pay for some of our electricity, I guess, which is nice. If they are gonna do what they say they're gonna do.
One thing that's come up at our local state parks advisory board, I'm a member of that, is the carrying capacity of this area. And we're seeing that we don't have like Low Point parking for the state
Absolutely.
park.
Yeah, that's a
We
good
don't
example.
have the infrastructure
Yeah.
to support a lot of tourism using those trails. Everything is falling apart, it's really hard to keep up with it. And I think that carrying capacity expands to how many helicopters can we support going to Godwin Glacier and other, well, that's full, so now we're gonna go to another little glacier, nearby. What's the carrying capacity of our very small area? It seems huge, but the wilderness is limited. So I think that should be part of this conversation.
It's a great point, yeah.
Understand.
Take a few hours to get out to the next few fjords, and when I started, it was remote, but now it's like struggle to get a beach away from other visitors and companies.
I wonder if some of these questions could be more multiple choice to give people, because they're so broad, you just kind of go, whoa, that's kind of a big question. But if you had choices for them, A, B, C, D, or what, whatever, that might help get you some better data and help them focus more on what the options are.
Yeah, I think a mix, question variety. Because you can, you could overlap on an open-ended question that you weren't expecting, or it gives people a chance to, open space to speak their mind on stuff. But I do like the direction for some too. There's like that strongly agree, or even a more different multiple choice, or who knows, you could design a lot of different questions. But I think that'd be good to have a variety. Some people do, do better with different types of questions as far as like, here's a reckon.
And some people will, I'll take a survey, and then they realize they have to write. And
Yeah.
like, oh, never mind.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have a space for others.
Yeah,
They
there you
can add more ideas.
Okay.
I mean, this is very inviting. Like, I'm interested in filling this out. And I think, you could go to different people who would, really respond to this and be able to kind of speak their minds on the state of
You could
things.
do chamber meetings and Rotary. Capture people there too.
Right.
Yeah. get on their
Oh,
agenda.
yeah, that'd be really good, because they would be a good word of mouth
Yes.
funnel into their,
Yeah, like we'll have the survey, which probably focus more on the multiple choice, but then in these other public engagement methods of open houses or informational table, we can provide also the options for more writing to these same questions. So we'll kind of gather that public input in a variety of ways.
The dot method is very popular, where you have selections on the white paper and give them dots. You go, yes, I support this. The different colors, red means I don't, yellow maybe, and
Oh, I see.
green, yes, I do. People like dots.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Stickers. We've done that in a lot of town meetings, open houses.
Oh, yeah. Turns into a heat map.
Yeah, but it's just
Yeah.
another way to get input without making people feel they have to really, write an essay or something.
And when you get into these opportunities to get in with groups, please give us a jingle so we can pitch in and help when we're available, if we're available.
sure, and I don't know what it'll look like for future work sessions, but definitely you'll be involved. It might be a small part of a work session to get your input on certain things, or I'm assuming at some point we'll have a larger, maybe full work session. But yeah, we will definitely keep you all in the loop. Can I get input on one more thing before we wrap up?
Yeah.
Just page 23, kind of mentioned it at the beginning. This was in one of the comprehensive plans that we liked, which was like kind of a way to give your comprehensive plan character, kind of what's unique about your town. And so kind of riddled throughout that plan was different spotlights of events, organizations, that, again, make up the character of a town. And so I think an example would be Commissioner Ullman talked about making sure Native history is a focus, and when we talk about the history of Seward. And so there is like a history section of the comprehensive plan, kind of part of that, side-by-side frame, or however the layout would be spotlight, talking about the Katuchek tribe, and kind of find ways to tie in different organizations to the character of the comprehensive plan. And so just want to get thoughts on that general idea, and these organizations, events, and if we missed anything. That's not to say they all would be included, but I think we're just, again, starting big, and maybe we'll start drafting stuff for these items, and then if they're relevant to the plan, we might find a way to tie it in.
Up with Kenai Fjords National Park, thinking of our neighbors, public land neighbors, I would include the Forest Service.
Forest Service.
Forest Service, Chugach, and the Alaska National Maritime Refuge. People don't realize that many of our tours go right through Maritime Refuge property, and they don't get much credit for it.
Is that
And-
federal?
and the
Or
state
no,
park.
state, that's state,
That's
but which
national.
department? Or it is?
It's federal.
Oh, it is, which department? Alaska Maritime Refuge?
Yeah, national.
Is it maybe run by NOAA, you think, or?
I don't know, have to do some research on that. Their headquarters are in Homer, Islands and Oceans. Can you explain rural cap? Do we have that here? I'm not familiar with
Yeah,
that.
was that presentation, I guess that wasn't to P&Z, I think they did a presentation to council, and that's a program where they purchased 10, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, 10 lots in Seward. Where are those lots up, do you know? Is it Forest Acres or?
They're in the Hilltop
Or
subdivision.
the Hilltop
I do remember
subdivision.
that. Okay.
And in order to buy into one of those lots, it's essentially like a work program. Like you help each other out, build all 10 houses on those lots before you're able to move in. And you have to like commit so many hours per week, but then you can also bring in friends and family to help fill in those hours, so you're essentially not working a full-time job. building your house, you still have the opportunity to work. And so, sounds like it was pretty successful to the point that they're looking at potentially getting more lots in town for that. And so, I think they did a presentation at council meeting a couple months ago.
I think it's a federal program.
Federal program? Yeah.
I would say I like the idea of the spotlight format. I think that could be really readable. And,
Okay.
Having heard that it's won an award, and just, I think Seward fits it well, like, this is a good list. There just highlights how there's so much, and, as a reader, you go, here's a little, just jump over here. And, maybe you keep it quick, like Lydia, Tsunami Swim Club, great one. Did you know is coming to mind? I don't know, but like a kind of, symbolic fact, achievement, important thing about that organization. And then even maybe a direction to other resources elsewhere, to kind of keep the read moving. But like spotlights grab the eye, and even just choosing to spotlight something is powerful, You're like, are the spotlights in who won this? Is Chicago?
The West Chicago one.
Okay,
so if you
so
look
like,
through that one, you'll kind of see how
maybe we'll look at that.
Yeah.
But like, are those, when they do a spotlight, like a jump to this, how many sentences is that? Like,
some of them are full pages, some of them are
Right.
like half a page or quarter page, kind
Gotcha.
of intertwined with the layout of whatever that page is.
Yeah.
But very graphic, like
Yeah.
pictures.
Yeah.
And
Right.
So that it's not just all text.
Gotcha. I like that. I think that's worth pursuing. What do you guys think about the format
Oh,
of
it
spotlight?
livens it up quite a bit. Don't forget the schools. We could do a spotlight for the cross-country team that just got 2 proclamations. And wrestling team, ski club,
Yeah,
they're
swimming.
doing outstanding swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tied it in with Tsunami Swim Club, but that's a great spotlight.
Yeah.
And then we could also spotlight our natural environment, the fishing that attracts so many people here, the tour boats and all that.
How about our sister cities?
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be a good one, yeah.
Yeah.
Good one.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hubbard. For Rocky today, I thought of that.
We have many things to spotlight. Our historic downtown, that's a pretty awesome thing we have, in the walking tour signs.
Speaking of that, I was talking to somebody about the town area, and I know this would take up parking, but someone brought, and I've seen these in a few towns in Europe where they have a corridor of like a garden or trees in the middle of the, and it's just for pedestrians.
Oh,
And it's
nice.
just made pedestrian walks, and so there's no traffic through there. And I was just thinking of the very last block on 4th Avenue between Washington and, is it Railway, to the Sea Life Center. And I'm just an idea, just become a pedestrian place, from that point on.
That'd be
Kind of
nice.
make it, huh?
That'd
It'd
be
be
cool.
kind of an inviting park
Yeah.
area where, they have eateries or whatever. Of course, they have they're having that little food truck area there, and but right down from there, they have a place to eat. I don't know. They could be,
That's cool.
have a small
Help
little
clear up
vendors,
That
whatever.
intersection there is sometimes tough to turn and not knowing who's coming.
Yeah.
Which avenue.
Like
Yeah.
we had that conversation before of like potentially just making that a walkable, like our little
Right.
downtown 3 blocks even, or 2 blocks, pop up things for the weekends only
Yeah,
where you can't
yeah.
drive it, and it's just very pedestrian friendly.
Yeah.
Could be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the parking issue, but that last block, you're not giving up too much parking, and there's plenty of parking down on the Sea Life Center parking lot. So, anyway, just
No, it's
another thought about, maybe it's something the downtown merchants could discuss or something, or we could present to them.
I'd like to highlight the National Historic Iditarod Trail and the bronze statues.
Oh, yeah, the
that-
statues have really been formidable down there.
4 of them now,
Yeah.
right. Pretty outstanding work.
Lee Pileski, does that include his, or?
I don't think I put it on here, but the The mural, there's a mural society, right?
Yeah,
Mural.
that's a good one.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Mural
Mural
Society,
capital.
yeah.
Are we not the mural capital of
Yeah.
Alaska?
Definitely do
Still
that.
are.
Many wonderful things to spotlight. It's
There's no shortage.
pretty cool, right?
Great. I think that's all we have. Do we have anything else?
Thank you for all this work, appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you for the feedback. That's super helpful to help guide the next steps of this big project.
So what's our homework? Gotta review
Want to do a
the,
quorum check for next meeting?
a what?
A quorum check?
Should we start
There
there?
What's the date of the next meeting?
August 6th, I believe.
August.
We are on just like a first and third Tuesday, right?
With the exception of October,
Okay.
where the commission, because of the election, pushed those two
Okay.
back.
Because like July has an extra Tuesday, but it's just
Correct.
August 6th. What is it? Yeah, let's get.
So will that be
August
3
6th.
weeks, so it'll be 3 weeks then, right? With the-
Will
yeah.
anyone not be here for the August 6th meeting?
I'll be here.
Good.
Okay, we have a quorum.
And then it would be the 20th
Yep.
for the work session.
Yep. Work
Cool.
session on the 20th.
I noticed we had 2 applicants for the seats and we're looking to fill one, so when do we know? When
I know, all of a sudden, we've got more than enough people applying.
Nice work, yeah.
Here we go. They will, so they're appointed by city council, so I believe they will be on the agenda for the next city council meeting.
Okay.
And then council, I guess they would, I don't know how that works, if they vote or, but they'll decide somehow.
They will vote to appoint.
Okay.
That person could be at the August 6th meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it works.
Shall
We'll feel guilty
we-
about missing a meeting now, because I'll have
Is
a.
everyone
Yeah,
ready
but-
for adjournment?
Yes.
What's that?
Are you ready for adjournment?
You got a round number.
Get points for that. I adjourn this meeting at 8:20.
Thanks.
Hello.